A stray dog, soaked by the pouring rain and abandoned near a construction site, struggled to protect her puppies from the dangers around them. But when a compassionate rescuer named Miju Kim, a young girl, found them, a spark of hope flickered. How did Miju's determination and love for animals change the fate of this mother dog and her pups? Stay tuned for today's story on Pets in Love and find out. Miju Kim had always been a compassionate soul, drawn to the plight of those who couldn't speak for themselves. It was no surprise to anyone who knew her that she'd become the voice of countless stray animals, especially dogs in need. But nothing could have prepared her for the heart-wrenching situation she would face on a rainy day in late spring, one that would test her in ways she had never imagined. It was a warm August morning in Korea when Miju Kim, a young woman with a heart full of compassion, stepped into her small store. Miju worked long hours, selling food and supplies to the locals, all the while caring for her own little white dog, a furry companion who brightened her every day. The store, nestled in a quiet part of town, was her safe haven, a place where she could unwind after a hard day's work. But that morning, something unusual happened. As Miju was organizing some goods behind the counter, she heard a soft whimper at the door. When she looked up, a stray dog had entered the store. The dog was thin, with a coat that looked like it had seen better days. She was a medium-sized dog, and Miju quickly noticed the motherly concern in her eyes. The dog approached Miju, begging for food. At first, Miju was hesitant. It was not uncommon for stray dogs to wander through the area, but there was something different about this one. The dog's pleading eyes told a story Miju couldn't ignore. Without a second thought, Miju took out some food and placed it in front of the dog. She ate ravenously, as if starving. But as Miju watched her, she realized there was more to this story. The dog wasn't just hungry. She was looking for something. "Where are your puppies?" Miju wondered aloud, noticing the dog's distressed expression. The dog paused in her eating and looked at Miju, then out the door. It was clear that she was not alone. The realization hit Miju like a wave. This stray dog had given birth to puppies, and they were somewhere nearby, waiting for their mother to return in front of the construction site. Miju's heart sank. She knew that the situation was dire. The weather had been unpredictable, with heavy rain pouring down for days. The construction site just down the street was a dangerous place for a small dog, especially one with young puppies. Miju was overwhelmed with concern. They had no shelter, no safety, and no way to escape the harsh conditions that surrounded them. The sight of the puppies wandering aimlessly in the rain, shivering and hungry, filled her with a deep sense of urgency. "There's no way I can help them," Miju thought. But the more she looked at the mother dog, the more her sense of duty grew. She couldn't just ignore them. She had to do something, even if it seemed like an impossible task. Miju quickly sent out a message to her friends and to a local rescue group, hoping they might have a solution. "I'm worried," Miju wrote. "It's raining so much, and they're in such a dangerous spot. The puppies are so tiny. I can't just leave them here, but what can I do?" The days that followed were filled with worry. Miju continued to feed the mother dog, who would appear at the store every day, her desperate eyes scanning the area for her puppies. The dog would sit by the door, waiting for Miju to give her food, but it was clear that her mind was elsewhere, on her babies. Miju did everything she could to help. She posted photos of the puppies online, asking for any assistance she could get. "They must be hungry. They came out to find their mother," she wrote. She couldn't take them with her, but she did her best to provide food and snacks, hoping the puppies would stay healthy. "I'm afraid to call the rescue group," she confessed, "but I know I can't leave them out here in the rain." The neighborhood residents were aware of the strays and often fed them, but no one had been able to offer a real solution. Miju felt trapped between wanting to help and not knowing how to do so effectively. For a while, it seemed like nothing could be done, but Miju wasn't one to give up. She continued her efforts day after day. Then, one day, she received a message from a local rescue group, Yuumpa. They told her they could not rescue the dogs right away, but promised to assist as soon as they could. It wasn't much, but it gave Miju a glimmer of hope. The days turned into weeks, and eventually Miju found herself taking on the role of protector for the stray dog family. She named the mother dog Yeppy. The puppies, too, began to show up more frequently, each one cuter than the last. Miju named them all after different foods: waffle, apple, and others, hoping that one day each of them would find a loving family. As Miju continued to care for the dogs, she noticed the situation slowly starting to shift. The puppies were no longer just wandering aimlessly. They were beginning to find shelter and safety where they could. Still, Miju's heart longed for more. She didn't want them to stay out there in the rain any longer, waiting for help. It wasn't long before the puppies' situation grew even more complicated. Miju noticed something strange. Every time she returned, the puppies had collars on them. At first, she was hopeful. Maybe they had an owner after all. But as she watched, it became clear that no one was taking care of them. The puppies, though adorned with collars, had been abandoned once again. Miju felt a pang of confusion and worry. She couldn't understand why someone would put collars on the puppies only to leave them out in such terrible conditions. Despite her growing concerns, Miju couldn't give up on the little family. She knew she had to find a solution, and with each passing day, more and more people began to rally behind her cause. The neighbors who had been feeding the dogs and watching over them had become her allies. They confirmed her worst fear. The puppies had been stray dogs for a long time, and the people in the neighborhood had been trying to care for them as best they could. Yet, no one had been able to rescue them properly. Miju felt a sense of gratitude toward the community, but also a deep sense of urgency. Over the next several weeks, Miju worked tirelessly to find a solution. The weather remained unpredictable, with rainstorms continuing to drench the puppies and their mother. Miju's only solace came from knowing that, at least for now, they were safe from the harshest elements. She continued to feed them, provide snacks, and protect them from the dangers of the construction site. But she knew that she couldn't keep doing this forever. Finally, there was a breakthrough. The puppies' rescue had been set into motion. Thanks to the tireless efforts of Miju and the volunteers at UMPA, the puppies and their mother were taken to a safe place where they would be examined and cared for. The mother dog, who Miju had lovingly named Yeppy, was taken to a foster home where she began treatment for heartworms, which she had contracted while living as a stray. Though the news was heartbreaking, Yeppy was safe now. She would no longer have to endure the pain of disease without help. As for the puppies, they were all adopted into loving homes one by one. Waffle and Apple, two of the puppies, found a foster family who adored them. Each day, Miju received messages of gratitude from those who had adopted the puppies, knowing that they would now have the chance to live the lives they deserved. The relief she felt was overwhelming, though bittersweet. She had come to love these little beings around, and watching them find their forever homes was both a joy and a sorrow. But there was still one more to save. The mother dog's former companion, a guard dog named Cream, was still out there, waiting for a family of her own. Cream had been a loyal protector of the construction site, but she was heartworm positive too, and Miju was determined to make sure she wouldn't have to return to that life. She worked hard to find a foster or adoptive family for Cream, and after many days of searching, a loving home finally appeared. With Cream's adoption secured, Miju's work was far from over. She knew that there were countless other dogs in need, waiting for someone to care. But for now, Miju could rest easy knowing that the little family she had fought for so hard, Yeppy, the puppies, and Cream, had all found their happily ever after. Miju would always carry the memory of those rainy days, the tiny puppies huddled together for warmth, and the love she had for them. It was a love that had changed their lives forever, and a reminder of the power one person can have when they choose to act with compassion. That's the end of today's story. Do you have a pet who might need a little extra care, or a stray in your neighborhood waiting for a kind heart? Could you help spread the word, adopt, foster, or support rescue organizations that are working tirelessly to give animals the lives they deserve? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you find our video interesting, please give it a big thumbs up and share it with others. Finally, don't forget to turn on our bell and subscribe to our channel Pets in Love so you don't miss any of our new videos. Thank you for your support. Wishing you all peace, happiness. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.